How's it going, folks? Welcome back to the channel. So sorry I didn't get a chance to do a Monday agenda video. It was a bank holiday here in Ireland and I didn't want to ruin it by talking about another defeat to Rangers this season. 4-1. It was miserable. I was miserable. I think everybody was miserable, so I thought I'd lay off with the video on Monday. But I'm back and there is something positive today. The legend that is Ryan118 is joining me. He is a YouTuber. You can follow his channel below, and he also does a couple of Scottish football podcasts as well. All the links are in the description below. We're doing something a little bit more positive. We're taking players from each of the different managerial reigns and sticking them into this Celtic squad. So that's the Martin O'Neill era, Gordon Strachan era, Neil Lennon 1.0, and the Brendan Rodgers era as well. Let's get straight into it. Ryan Fitzsimons, Ryan118, how are you getting on?
Not bad at all, mate. I'm very happy that you've asked me on. I'm looking forward to hopefully having a positive chat rather than all the negatives we've had over the past few months.
Yeah, I'll ask you one negative question though. How many times have you hit your head off the wall this season?
I mean, that many times that I can't count anymore. It has just been frustration after frustration, week in, week out. And it's the only thing you feel like you can do is just bang your head off the wall in it.
Yeah, 70 days as we record this, 70 days, and
Yep.
Still no manager for Celtic. Eddie Howe, though, thoughts? You excited if that ever happens?
If it does happen, which I'm confident it will, it just looks as though it's taking time, but if it does happen, very excited. It'll be at least, I feel like it'll be probably the first positive conversation of the season. It's a really top tier appointment, I'd say. I've been kind of crying out for Eddie Howe since November. So, you know, if we make that happen, if we do get it over the line, then I'm very excited to see what he does next season. Of course, massive rebuild, but I'm willing to be patient because I think it's the right guy to put in charge.
I'm going to break the fourth wall here. We tried to record this earlier on and my internet was absolutely shocking. So we're going again. What we're doing is I'm going to ask you to take a player from each of the four real managerial appointments, take a player from those squads and put them into the current squad. So Martin O'Neill, 2000 to 2005, Gordon Strachan, 2005-09, Neil Lennon 1.0, that's 2010, 2014, and then Rodgers, 2016, 2019. So there's quite a few players there. And I'm not sure, you're probably around the same age as me, but Martin O'Neill might be a little bit of a stretch in terms of how much you've actually seen these guys.
Yeah, so of course, when Martin O'Neill left Celtic, I would have probably only been about 5 or 6 years old, or 4 or 5, I should say, actually. So I didn't get to watch it in real time, but you know, from what I've seen and from what my family have told me, I'll be able to make some sort of, I think, educated assessment on who I'd take.
Can I make it even more difficult for you and say that you can't take Henrik Larsson?
Yeah, I wasn't actually going to take Larsson, to be honest. So it kind of works well if I don't take Larsson.
Right. We'll start with the Martin O'Neill era then. Who are you taking from that squad and why?
So I think I don't know. It's a bit of a curveball maybe, but I'm actually taking Big Bobo Baldy. I'm going to take him in the team. I feel like so when Shane Duffy signed for Celtic, I had the kind of the imagination was running wild and saying, "Oh, this is it, the no-nonsense defender." Everybody was kind of thinking, "Oh, the no-nonsense defender, the kind of authoritarian that we needed in the back line." And of course, we never really got that. And I still think we're missing that. We're missing a sort of presence in the back line. And that goes across the whole back line, I think, full backs and in the middle. And I think Bobo Baldi was just, I know he had a hot streak in him. And sometimes he might have got the bad side of that, the negatives of that, but I feel like he's exactly the kind of player that Celtic need just now. Sitting beside maybe a Christopher Ajer. And when he was playing his best, he was just unbelievable. The power, the strength, everything else, the tackling, just a brilliant centre-half.
Yeah, I have somewhat of an Irish guilt over Shane Duffy because when he first signed, I was like, yes, this is class. Because he was actually, he genuinely was deadly. He was really, really good for Ireland over the last couple of years. But I think we're now discovering, because when he was playing for Ireland, it was, you know, a couple of centre defensive midfielders playing in front of him, a really low line, not expected to play much ball. Same with Brighton under Chris Hughton. And then
Exactly.
now that we're seeing with, although I would like to see him next season with an actual defensive midfielder, not Scott Brown.
I really do feel bad for him, man. Like, because I feel like everything with the way the season is where it's just kind of set up for failure of him. Because we saw glimpses when he first came in of how good he could be. It was the first couple of games. You know, I was really excited, and it just all went downhill for the first derby of the season. So I definitely can understand why you do feel that sense of guilt, because you know there is a player there. There definitely is.
Yeah, the passing of his dad as well is obviously a big thing, because I mean he was a Celtic fan, so was his dad. So I do think that definitely plays a role. So it might have been just the worst possible move at the worst possible time for Shane Duffy. But I was actually going to take Bubba Baldi as well for that exact reason, because I think like if you look at the amount of goals we've conceded from set pieces, at least he might be there to solid it up a bit. But I would probably go Didier Agath, because
that was my second choice. That was my second.
Because he can put in a cross that actually reaches the player that he intends to reach, instead of, you know, Jeremy Frimpong and Greg Taylor not beating the first man. So Didier Agath would have been my choice. So Gordon Strachan, his team, now that I would have been in the age bracket where that was probably the Celtic team that I grew up with, really. Like I saw some of the Martin O'Neill years, but Gordon Strachan, I was actually at games that he was the manager for. I was at the Champions League game against United, those kind of games.
Yep.
So
those are the games that I remember the most.
There's a lot of cult heroes in that squad for sure. Yep. So who's your choice from that?
For me, this one picked it was the first one straight away. I had to take Artur Boric. He was like the first name that jumped off. He's number one, my favourite Celtic player in my lifetime. I just love him, adore him. As you said, he's like a cult hero in it. But ultimately, if you want to look at the team just now, and you look at the fact that we don't have a really good goalkeeper. I mean, I'm hoping that we might see that for Barkas one day. I'm hoping, but I mean, at this point, it's kind of blind faith. We really need a goalkeeper, and Boric is just unbelievable. He really has the sort of passion that you feel like the team need just now as well, if you're looking at it from a mentality point of view. But just if you're looking at it for sheer quality, you know, there was no many better than him to play in Scotland. And straight away, as soon as I thought of Strachan's team, I was like, well, he sorts out so many issues if you just go with him.
Yeah. Thoughts on the Scott Bain situation? Because it's amazing that we've gotten to this point in time and we're still playing Scott Bain in goals.
It's madness. I said it in the last match review after the Derby loss. I was like, this is a guy we brought in on an emergency type transfer who was still in a Hibs tracksuit when he signed for Celtic. He's a Hibs quality keeper, and sometimes I feel bad saying he's a Hibs quality keeper. I feel bad for Hibs. I just feel like he should be nowhere near the starting lineup for Celtic, and the fact that he was brought in to be a backup, and then he got rushed into the team, and then we thought we solved that issue, and now he's back in the team just as one of the kind of situations that show how mismanaged we've been from head to toe in terms of recruitment and everything else. It just baffles me that he still manages to get in that team week in, week out.
Yeah, it reminds me sort of like the Thomas Kuszczak goalkeeping situation at United, that period where, you know, David De Gea wasn't quite good enough in the air. He was still a little young, still a little weak, and they didn't really know who was the best player. But then Thomas Kuszczak got like a run in the team regardless of whether he was good enough. Like it also sort of, it's worrying to me about John Kennedy, and it was always the worry that he would continue doing what Neil Lennon was doing, because he was part of that coaching setup, so he was making decisions as well. So yeah, I think Artur Boric is a good shout for the goalkeeper, because we badly need a goalkeeper that's going in. I would have gone with another winger probably, and I really want to throw Aidan McGeady in there. I really do, just because he was quality but also shit at the same time, if you get what I mean. Like,
he was so hit and miss, wasn't he? But like when he played his best, he was just he's one of the best players I've ever seen play for Celtic when he's at his best.
Yeah, he could beat like 10 men with a dribble and then hit his shot like a mile wide. Never beat the first man across. But I think you have to go with Nakamura for that, because again, hot and cold, but when he's hot, he was the best player in the league. And I remember I used to do you know the Celtic annuals you used to get for Christmas in your stockings? Cool. There was an article by him. Obviously he didn't speak English, so it wasn't written by him at all, but about how he hit the free kicks, and I actually went out and painted circles on my wall because that's what he said he did when he was younger.
That's right. The video, like him hitting the free kick through the bus window, like that was like massive back in the day. Everybody, he's the best free kick taker. I mean, that was how good he was, man. And hitting it through a moving bus was brilliant.
Yeah. I think he's still at it, but yeah, he'd be in my team for the. Oh well, he was on Japanese TV. He's still a massive celebrity apparently. Right. So I'm not surprised why. But that would be Bubba Baldi, Nakamura, Didier Gath and Arthur Burke are making the squad. So you're already strengthening up in positions that you need them. Neil Lennon 1.0, different to Neil Lennon 2.0.
Well, very different, isn't it? It is weird just to look at the two different eras and then look how the time is kind of how it's went, how it's aged. You know, what really annoys me is like, so when Neil Lennon like first left Celtic and he had his big speech at Celtic Park, he was like, oh, blah blah blah, this that next thing, and he was gone. It was like a kind of hero send off in a way, and then he came back, and then I started to believe that maybe we would get an actual hero send off again, and it just went, and now it's like most people can't even imagine welcoming back to Celtic Park anytime soon. It's just crazy how the two different terms you could just look at and go, wow, what a bizarre situation it became.
Yeah, I think that's why people want him gone so early though, because it was like, you know, the board have to take some responsibility for this because they let that man, his reputation be completely eroded by Celtic fans and I mean, it might come back eventually because of what he did before, but in November, that would have been the time, and he would have been sent away, and it would have been like, okay, Neil, thanks for helping us out in a tight spot. But now it's just like, yeah, Neil Lennon is a
move on sort of thing, aye.
Yeah. So 1.0, so that's 2010 to 14. So obviously you have the team that beat Barcelona as well. You have a couple of other big Champions League nights. You know, you're getting into the stage as well, though, that the competition in Scotland has gone for reasons that we know why, but it's hard to know how good Celtic were at this point in time. So what's your thoughts on this period and maybe a player that you would take from the squad?
It's definitely weird. Like looking back on it, it was kind of like, as much as Celtic fans were loving it and drinking it in, it was kind of like you didn't know what to expect. But I feel like I know in the country's kind of game, the competition might have not been as riveting as it once was, but they certainly still managed to produce good players. I mean, the first name that comes to your mind straight away is Virgil Van Dyke. Like, he played against Rangers once, and it wasn't even when they were in the division. And look at the career; he's arguably the best centre half in the past decade. I mean, maybe apart from Sergio Ramos, he's crazy good. So we'll certainly still develop good players. If I was to pick someone, Van Dyke is like the obvious one, and I realise I probably should be picking Van Dyke, but because I've already picked a centre half, I'm going to change it up a bit, and I'm going to go for somebody different. I'm going to go for Victor Wanyama. I feel like it speaks for himself that he was some player, unit in the middle. The important goal against Barcelona pops to mind as well. Stepped up big moments. And for a short term at Celtic, he showed how good he was. Got his big move to Southampton and then further on to Tottenham. He was just a really good footballer. I feel sorry for him because obviously his career's kind of went down a slope with the injuries he's picked up, but it was just brilliant. And watching him was like, you knew when you watched him that he would go into big things. He was that good. So I think he's the second best thing to Van Dijk in that time. So I'll go with him.
Yeah, we have very similar taste in players apparently, because that was my choice as well. And it's just exactly the issues that we have had this year. I mean, playing 36-year-old Scott Brown as a centre defensive midfielder in a shape that allows your fullbacks to go forward. I mean, like, honest to God, a 16-year-old who plays FIFA will tell you that it's just not going to work.
It's just like impossible for Scott Brown to, I feel like, keep up with the pace of the game week in, week out. You look at him and just the way that the play goes around him, from left to both on the left and right hand side. I feel like he just looks dazed this season. When the fullbacks are trying to get forward, I feel like Brown's just it's so we need somebody that's younger than him, and that's when Sorrell came into the team, you thought that would be it. So if I was to have Wanyama there, I feel like that would solve a lot of issues.
Yeah, Scott Brown goes chasing a lot, which is another issue entirely, because if he didn't chase, if he just sat back, he's fine. But it's just the fact that he chases after everything. And I actually don't think Sorrell is the guy to take Celtic forward, but he is better than Scott Brown at that role.
That's what we were having that conversation, I think, the other day. One of my mates, I was like, I liked Sorrell, I really like him in the team, but I feel like there is that danger that just because he had that spell when we were so bad that we think that he is the holy grail and he has the answer. I feel like that's a lot, not just very naive, but a lot of pressure to also pile on him as well. Like it's a big ask to kind of fill in that role.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like just because he's better than what we have doesn't mean he is the answer, because it just means we've been shit. I'll throw in another bit of a hot streak player, and that is George Samaras. Because because the chaos that man is able to cause alone is just enough for me to bring him into the side.
See, he was the player that I was thinking for this. I was like, should I take Samaras? Because he's in the same kind of category as Boric for me. If I was to pick like 5 of my favourite Celtic players in my lifetime, he's certainly up there. So I was like, maybe I should take Samaras because how much I love him. But then I was like, should I sacrifice the quality of like Wanyama, Van Dyke, or whatever? So I tried to think it more level-headed. But see, when you say it, it's like, if Samaras is ever an opportunity, you've got to take him. It's just on his day. Oh, like it was parallel with Messi.
Yeah, it's just tall, lanky, awkward, but really good as well.
Yeah, like carrying the ball forward, you just watched him like, wow. Like on his day, he was technically amazing.
And he's the type of player as well that you want on your side if you want to frustrate the opposition. Like if you're one up against Rangers and you have George Samaras up front, he's going to take the ball into the corner and just hold it there until somebody cleans him out of it and he wins a free kick.
Aye.
Dare I bring up the Brendan Rodgers era? Because I know it's a hard point for yourself particularly because I mean what a couple of years that was.
Honestly, just unreal, innit? It's just thinking back to it, it's like it's crazy we actually went through it.
Do you still feel bitter about it?
Yeah, I think the bitterness is understand. I am kind of at the point where I'm like, right, it's happened. It's I don't want to say it's understandable because I still feel frustration. Like I still remember that day I was at the pub when it broke that Rodgers in talks with Leicester, and I was sitting there at the pub and I was like, because I was at uni and we went for a pint. And I was sitting there, I was like, surely no. And then it all just finalised and he was away, and I just felt so sort of let down and angry. And I was like, can I forgive somebody for this, especially when he's got walking around the stadium getting at the whole 10 in a row, he's got to be here and he's a supposed Celtic fan, so the bitterness is well understood. Now I'm at the point where things have went the way it's went this season and I'm just thinking back to like the good times, so I'm like, Brendan, God, I think that is something that in the future a lot of fans will eventually come around to, and I know that's an unpopular take, but I feel like it is going to happen one day. I think a lot of fans will come around to go and realise like, wow, like okay, Brendan Rodgers, what he done was crazy. I don't want to be overly sympathetic because I completely understand the bitterness and I'm like still a bit there as well. But it's just things have got that bad this season, and I'm like, I just appreciate it happened, to be honest.
Yeah. You see the standard they took us to. I think that's the issue. But I suppose if you look at it, I find it tough. Brendan Rodgers is almost different to when a player leaves. I find it tough when Celtic fans like chastise a player for leaving, because I mean that's what our club is sort of set up to do at the minute, to bring in these players for a short period of time. So like the Kieran Tierney treatment, for example, I thought that was crazy stuff.
Exactly.
But Brendan Rodgers is just because he left before the end of the season, and I'm like, I just can't get over it. Just stay until the end of the season.
It's crazy how much a difference it would have made if he did stay till the end of the season, rather than leave in February, because it would have went with so much goodwill. I think a lot of fans would have understood. I think fans would have been disappointed, but I don't think the bitterness would have lasted as long as it has, and I don't think it would have been as rife as it was. It was like I feel like a lot of people use the word cowardly, and it was kind of a cowardly thing to do, to leave in like what was it, the end of February. It had so much potential to finish that season and finish the treble himself.
And maybe the transition would have been better as well, because I mean he could have told the club what's happening, and well, God knows whether the board would have had a manager in place by the end of the season, but we may not have seen this Neil Lennon situation happening right now. But I mean, past is the past. So what player are you taking from the Brendan Rodgers era?
As soon as the same way the kind of Strachan era, as soon as I sat down and looked at it, it was only one name that jumped off the sheet for me straight away, and it was Kieran Tierney. Has to be Kieran Tierney, I think. We've struggled, of course, with fullbacks. And like, for as much as Taylor's still young and got development there, and I mean, Tierney was just another level, wasn't he? And I just feel like both attacking and defending, he offered you so much. He was bombing down that left-hand side for fun. The only issue, of course, was the kind of the fitness issues that we started to see a little bit later on. But if you take that aside, I feel like he's up there with one of the best raw talents this club's probably ever produced. I mean, especially in the last 10, 20 years, he might be even number one. I mean, look at the careers even just having at Arsenal. So the attributes that he brought to the game, and that you even see for Scotland now, is just, I feel like, unmatched. There's a lot of good players in that team. People know how much I love Moussa Dembele, and it would be very easy for me to go for him because he's just a god to me. And Sinclair as well, another great player. But Tierney was just a kind of generational talent, I feel, and I had to go with him.
Yeah, I think Tierney is an interesting one because obviously in previous years with the likes of Sutton and Larson and that ilk of player, they like the Scottish League was on par with those leagues back at that stage. But the fact that it's so much more difficult to develop these players that are good enough for top clubs in England, like top clubs. I'm not talking about Ryan Christie going to Burnley. I'm talking about like going into a top 6 squad and being their best player instantly. And that's what Kieran Tierney's done. I know Arsenal aren't great this year, but he's their best player.
Yeah, and I know. I mean, people hang on a bit like Aubameyang and that, but Tierney's just kind of stole the limelight for him. I mean, the Aubameyang's not helped to sell how poor he's been this year, but when you see Arsenal fans on social media, it's always Tierney they're speaking about. Yeah,
he's always the most consistent. So I think he's an unbelievable player that we've developed in an era that it's more like we're going to struggle to develop a player like Kieran Tierney every 10 years. That's where we're at the minute because it's just the pool is so big. I'm going to go with Moussa Dembele. I think it's the first man comes on the list, and I think the best thing that's ever happened is Atletico Madrid tweeting out El Hunskelper as his nickname.
I couldn't see when I seen that. Like I was like taken aback that they actually done it, but I just had a massive cheeser on my face. I was like, I can't believe they've gone with this. They've rolled with it. Fantastic.
It was unbelievable stuff, but he was different level altogether. Like I know Odson Edouard's been exceptional, except for this year. But again, you're looking at that and you compare his last season to Moussa Dembele's last season, very, very similar because we didn't sell him on time.
That's Dembele's just. I've always said it in my videos, and I know in terms of Tierney, I think it's the best club this player's produced, but Dembele for me is probably ability-wise the best player I've ever seen play for Celtic. I think been maybe the best in Scotland since Henrik Larsson. I know we've had a lot of players since Larsson. You had your Nakamuras, and even at Rangers you've had people like Barry Ferguson and all the rest of it who went on to have really good careers. But and Stephen Davis as well, and even at Celtic a lot of good players. But Dembele, just you knew it straight away when he came into the team that he had the unmatched ability. He would go to the very top. Like as soon as he started hitting the form, I was like, he is special, like very, very special. And I just wish we could have got more time with him.
Yeah, again, it's going to be more difficult. Like the scouting department needs to improve if you're going to get players like them coming in again. So that is Bubba Baldi. I'm going to say he's replacing, say, Shane Duffy. Kieran Tierney is coming in for Laxalt. Victor Wanyama coming in for Scott Brown, leaving the club. Lydia Gath, Nakamura replacing players on the wing, and then Moussa Dembele up front. Say who's he coming in instead of Klamala, who's off to the States.
Klamala's gone, isn't he? So there you go.
I think those are fairly decent signings.
I think look, if you put those players at their best into this team, it's a team that would, I think, make up for the disappointment of this season, to say the least.
Are you optimistic about next season?
Well, it's so early to tell, isn't it? It's like we've got that much to do that it's really hard to tell at this point because God knows how many signings we're going to have to make and who leaves. I want to say I'm more optimistic because Eddie Howe's coming in and we know how good a coach Eddie Howe is. But I feel like I'll save the definite judgment until we've made the signings and recruited because it could be a long season. It could be a long summer. We need to get things done. And that's why I wish the wheels were in motion now because, we're 12 weeks away from the Champions League qualifiers. So hopefully, I'm feeling ambitious. We need to make the right decisions though.
I am less optimistic. I think it's going to be a shit show. So on that note, Ryan 118, thanks for joining me today.
A pleasure, mate. I really enjoyed that. I look forward to speaking again.